I feel like this whole election cycle this year has just been so phenomenally badly timed for Labour that I can't. I feel like the context of this is so insanely difficult for an opposition party to do anything that this whole year has been completely unique in the pandemic. The government has been on the telly every day talking to the public, and although I agree that the government has screwed a lot of stuff up, unfortunately from a Labour point of view the vaccine program's been very successful and very popular, and so this is the point at which this is the worst point to have an election for Labour. And I think that's been shown by the results, that basically all the incumbents have done really well. So in Wales, Labour are in charge, they've done really well. In Scotland, SNP, blah, blah, same. And whoever's in charge is because it feels like I think basically people in the country as a whole, in general, are feeling like, well, we're beginning to get through this thing and let's start to look to the future. Let's not worry about what happened, earlier in the year with all those deaths. Let's move on to the next thing. And unfortunately, if you weren't physically affected by COVID, if someone in your family wasn't affected by it or you don't know people, then a lot of people have just had quite a nice year. They've had a year where they've made more money than usual because they've been paid by the government to stay at home, or they've sat at home doing their normal job and not having to pay travel. They've seen their families more. That actually in some ways it's been a relatively good year for some people. And so I think it's hard for us. I think if you pay a lot of attention to politics, and you know what's going on, Boris Johnson is clearly the most morally depraved prime minister we've had since the last one. That, what are we? I'm there going, I can't understand why anyone votes for him. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't pay attention to politics. Loads of people don't. 90% of people probably plus don't. And so all they see is like, well, the vaccine's going well. I've been paid by the government to either stay at home or my friends have order. Yeah, I'm all right. And that's I think Labour I absolutely agree with whoever it was then saying, Simon Donald saying they need policies. I think Labour do need policies, but I think probably Labour would say, but this isn't a general election. There isn't a general election for another 3 years probably, so we can't put all of our policies in the public domain and then expect anyone to vote, because everyone will just go, well, that's not realistic. None of that stuff's going to happen. So I think they were in a difficult spot. I don't think they did it well. I think they did a good job, but just as you were talking, it reminded me of I suddenly thought, gosh, I feel like Keir Starmer's sort of in a position like Nick Clegg was in 2010. He had a very difficult hand to play, but he's playing it quite badly. And I think that's sort of what happened with Nick Clegg, that Nick Clegg had this he was in coalition, but he didn't have quite enough power in the coalition, so he didn't quite have enough influence to be able to do the things he wanted to do. But he could, and I always thought, but you still made a mess of it, but you could have done better. But it's hard. It's a tricky place to be.
But don't you think, both, actually, you just mentioned Nick Clegg, both Nick Clegg and Keir Starmer, for me, they look like what politicians should look like. They sound like them. They like the quintessential Ken and Barbie Ken. So they are the Ken doll, the Ken prototype of, especially Starmer. This is what a Labour like a Labour MP, this is Labour, like a leader could look like. But actually, when you take his clothes off, take his suit off, look under his pants, he is just like a Ken doll. There's nothing there, no balls. And I think that's what these men lack, is they've got no balls. And they, come match ready, for fuck's sake. And I think I'm really annoyed as a lefty. I am annoyed that, we aren't in a strong position, and they've just and agree with Louisa, this should have been an easy win.